For years, I tried to turn my purpose into a business. I had the passion, the vision, even the word from God, but nothing worked. I poured my heart in, but all I got back was confusion, burnout, and disappointment. Looking back now, I see the mistakes I made. Mistakes that kept my business stuck and kept me stuck with it. If you're a woman of faith, starting over, trying to build something new after divorce, or just ready to walk in what God called you to do, this might save you years of pain. Let's talk about the 10 biggest mistakes I made, starting with number 1, so you don't have to make them too. So the first mistake that I made is not having a clear brand identity. And this is important because when you start something and then someone says something to you along the lines of picking a niche or focusing what you're wanting to offer, that's kind of what that, lends itself to. I'm a type of person that I am a learner. I love to learn. And so because I love to learn, there are lots of things that I'm interested in and that I can talk about and teach on. And so when you are at that kind of person, it can be very difficult to niche down. And it can also make you feel like you are limiting yourself, like you are not being your true self if you have to just pick one when you're interested in a lot of different things. And so when I originally started my business, I had that mindset. I felt like, it's limiting. And then it's not really true to who I am if I just pick one thing, because I'm interested in a lot of different things. And so, that was one of the issues that I had, is that I was interested in a lot of different things and I released products based on what I was interested in. And that is a mistake in business. You need a clear brand identity. And so what happens is, it's not that you can't be interested in a lot of different things, and it's not that you can't release products that are related to different things. But you have to understand what your brand identity is, and then make sure that all of those products can be cohesive around that brand identity. Because if people will connect with the brand and they love the brand, then they will, they won't be concerned about the fact that this product doesn't necessarily relate to that product, because they all relate to the brand. And so when you don't have a brand identity, then you just release products and it doesn't look cohesive, and the customer ends up confused. So I'm gonna give you an example. When I first started my business, I was I had just done my separation, and so I was a newly single mom. And so there, of course, was a lot of things that I was interested in. So the first thing I did was I released a book. Like you guys know, I was hearing God about, whether or not divorce is acceptable as a Christian and those kinds of things. And so I was really passionate about that, and I really wanted to get that message out to other women of faith. However, as one of those women of faith, I also knew that, okay, it's not just the fact that I needed to hear God on whether or not divorce was acceptable. I also needed healing in terms of a divorce recovery. So I also released a product on that. Then I also needed, wisdom when it came to parenting, because now I was a new single parent. So I released a product on that. And so when you're releasing all these different products, but you don't have a brand that, ties all those products together, then now you're going to attract some customers that are interested in looking for parenting information. Then you've got some customers that are looking for divorce recovery information. Then you've got some customers that are looking for, they're in a toxic marriage and they're looking for answers on whether or not they can get a divorce. And so those 3 different kinds of people aren't necessarily looking for all 3 of those things, right? And so even for me, even though I had wisdom on all those things, I wasn't looking for all those things at the same time, right? There was a season where I was really, really focused on whether or not divorce was acceptable because I was in this toxic marriage, but I wasn't necessarily looking for parenting information because that was all consuming, right? I was in this toxic marriage and I just really needed answers on that. And then there were other seasons, like when I got out of that and when I got separated, where I was like, okay, I need some help on divorce recovery. But even then, my main focus was on the parenting. So you're not necessarily looking for all 3 of those at the same time. And so you end up attracting different customers that are looking for different things, and they that's not the way you build a business, right? Because as a business owner, it's very difficult to attract customers. That's a lot of work to attract customers. There's a lot of marketing and advertising and work that goes into what's called customer acquisition, right? And so when you put that work in and you're able to successfully get a customer, you want that customer to be interested in multiple things that you have to offer. If they're only interested in that one item, then you're not going to have a business, because they're not going to be a repeat customer, and you're going to have to keep putting in that same amount of energy every single time you get a sale, and that's not feasible. And so I didn't understand any of that. I was just releasing products based on what I was interested in. So here's what I mean. Here is my book on toxic marriage and divorce. And so there are several reasons why this book would not be in alignment with the brand that God has given me now. Because again, when I started this business, this was years and years ago, and I did not have an actual brand then. Now I do. So even though this book is an amazing book, the book is called From Divorce to Destiny, and it really tells it like a novel, right? It tells the story of a specific person, a woman who is in a toxic marriage. It tells the story of when she decides, you know what, this is unacceptable. The exact incident that happens to her where she realizes, this is a toxic marriage. This is not God's plan for me. It illustrates how God speaks that to her, and it illustrates, what it took for her to make that final decision and, get out. So it's a great book, and it basically tells my story through the lens of a fictional character. And I did that deliberately because, like I said, I had just went through a separation, and I knew a divorce was going to be coming, and I didn't want to write the book as a biography because I knew that, that would be something that might be able to be used in court, and I didn't want to do that. And so I specifically wrote it from the lens of a fictional character, but I did it also because I wanted my readers to be able to kind of see themselves in the book and read it, more like a novel than like a personal development book. And so it was written, that way. And so it's a great book. I stand behind it, but it will target a very particular customer that may not be interested in, everything that my company would have to offer. So there's that. So then I also released a course that went along with the book, but the course was literally verbatim from the book. It was like just me reading the book, and it was just for people who weren't necessarily readers, didn't necessarily want to have to read it, but they could just, view it on screen as a course, and it would be, a different kind of learning, teaching style type situation. And so I released that as well. And so then I also released this is the divorce recovery book that I did. Now, what I did with this is, again, it started out as a book. I wrote it as a book, and then I also turned that book into a course. So it was the same, process where I wrote a book first, then I turned the book into a course. Now, one thing I did with this course was, the first course, was I did it as a voiceover PowerPoint situation. With this course, I wanted to have someone on screen talking because I wanted it to be a little bit more engaging. However, I wasn't at the place where I could be on screen, right? Because again, I was going through the separation and trying to rebuild my life and trying to get housing and all the things. And so I wasn't in a place where I could be on screen. And so I actually hired a spokesperson to read the content on screen, and then I used that. So again, it is excellent content. I definitely stand by the content, but again, as a brand, having a spokesperson read it instead of me, the face of the business, reading it, again, that doesn't really lend itself to, the kind of a brand where people are going to identify with the brand and kind of want to continue with the brand, right? It goes back to people, getting that feeling of inauthenticity, right? Where you're seeing a spokesperson on the screen versus seeing the person that actually can identify with them and actually understands what they're going through, right? And so again, great content, just not necessarily the execution that the brand that I'm trying to build would want to put forward, if that makes sense. Okay. So then the next product that I released is that I released a workbook to go along with that course. And so that course has, the book, the workbook, and the course. And so again, great content, just not what I'm looking for going forward. Okay. And then the third thing was the parenting book. So I released that parenting book, again, turned the parenting book into a course. The course was more of a voiceover like the first one. Again, great content, but again, a little bit unrelated for a customer that is really looking for divorce or divorce recovery content. The parenting content is not necessarily what they're looking for. And so, yeah, the actual name Freedom Through Divorce and that branding is very recent. I released these products back between 2014 and 2016, but then I didn't actually get the name of the brand and the actual branding until about, I'd say it's probably maybe 2023, 2024. So it's more, I released those products under, there basically was no brand whatsoever. It was just me releasing products. And so that is the first mistake that I made, is that I did not have a clear niche or identity. And why is that important? It's important because it gives your brand direction. It tells you, if you come up with a product idea, because business owners, entrepreneurs, we have plenty of ideas. There's never going to be a shortage of ideas. However, we have to learn to sift through those ideas and say, this is a good idea, but this is not for my brand, or this is a good idea, but this is not for right now, or this is a good idea, but I need to execute it in a different way, right? We have to learn how to make those ideas work for us instead of just releasing everything that we think about. And that's what I was doing back then. I was just releasing. Anytime I got an idea, it was like, let's release this, let's release that, let's release this, and doing it without restraint or without being strategic or deliberate. And so that's the first mistake that I made in business, is that I just released any product I wanted to release and didn't really think, okay, is this in alignment with my brand? And so when that happens, it's going to be hard to build a brand. If you're just looking to build like a, like an Etsy shop or something like that, and you're just looking to make some sales, you can make a few sales that way. But if you're actually looking to build a brand for it to be something that is going to be able to, you're going to be able to quit your job, or you're going to be able to turn it into an actual business and it actually provide for your family, you're going to need a brand. You're going to need to know an identity. And that's why I'm constantly focusing on the Find Your Purpose course, because finding your purpose just relates to so many things in your life. When you find your purpose, it helps you make decisions about your life. It helps you make decisions about, should I take this job? Shouldn't I take this job? Is this the kind of relationship I need to be in for, having a good marriage this time or not? Is this a decision that I should make concerning my children? Like, all of the life decisions that you need to make really need to be filtered through the lens of my relationship with God and what He has said, which is why I also really harp on Bible study and learning to hear God and all those things, but also through, what is my purpose? What is it that God has put me on this earth to do? Because if it doesn't relate to that, then why am I doing it? Right? It may be a great opportunity, but it may not be an opportunity that's for me. It may not be an opportunity that's in alignment with my 5-year plan or my 10-year plan. And if you're trying to meet a goal, you're not going to know what steps to take if you don't know what the goal is. And so trying to determine what those goals are, you have to know what your purpose is. And that relates the same thing to branding. It's like the business's purpose, right? What has God put this business on my heart for it to do, right? What is this business, needing to accomplish? Who does this business need to help? And that, understanding that will help you determine, yes, these products are in alignment with my business, or no, these products are not. Or maybe they are in alignment, but we need to find another way to release them so that we can make sure that they are in alignment with the business, so that, because you want your branding and your business and all those things, really just what it is you're trying to communicate a message, a feeling, a emotion to your customer. The business is the lens and the language that message is written in, right? And so if you release a message and you don't filter it through the lens of the business, when it gets to your customer, it's not going to translate, right? It's like if I'm speaking to someone and I want to speak to them in German and they speak English, I need to make sure that the message is going to get to them in English. If I'm not going to translate it, then they're not going to understand it. And that's what happened with me releasing all of these products without a brand, is that I was trying to communicate a clear message, but the message never got translated to my customer's language. And so they were left confused and they just said, you know what, we're going to move on. And so that is the first mistake that I made. And I want to make sure that you don't make that mistake. If you are an entrepreneur and you have started a business and your business isn't going well, see if this is one of the mistakes that you're making. Really understand, what is the business brand that I want to have? What do I want this business to do? What message do I want this business to communicate? How do I want to make my customer feel? And then turn that into a brand and that identity for that brand, and then take those products you're trying to release and push them through that, filter them through that, right? And sometimes that means that you will have to kind of rebrand and package the product. And sometimes it means that you need to develop different products. And so that is part of what I'm doing. The whole point of me going through these 10 steps, it's not just so I can teach you guys 10 steps, but these are the things that I've reflected on about the business that I have to change going forward, because I'm planning on releasing physical products. That's one of the things that I would like to do within the business, is I would like to release physical products as the relaunch. And I will make sure that those physical products do go through the lens of the business. The products that I feel like don't align with that brand, they will be removed from my website. And so these 3 products that we've been discussing are being removed from my website. I'm having a sale. As of right now, when you guys are watching this video, these products are offered in a sale as a bundle, and that bundle is only going to be available until July 11th, because that is the date that I am planning, as of right now, fingers crossed, to release the physical products. And so from now until then, these products will be offered as a bundle. So it includes the book and the course from Divorce to Destiny book and course, and it includes the book and the course and the workbook for the divorce recovery book, and it also includes the parenting book and course. So you're getting 3 books, 3 courses, and a workbook, and the price of the bundle is only $9.99. So that is a steal. They will not be available after July 11th, so be sure and get your copy today. So that is the first mistake that I made in business that I will not be making again as I do the relaunch. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're enjoying this series. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. And we will continue tomorrow with my second mistake that I made in business. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I am Amanda Nicole, and I am the CEO of Freedom Through Divorce. And so I create personal development courses and ebooks and all kinds of things that are geared towards women of God who have been through divorce, who are considering divorce, and who want to move towards freedom and finding their purpose in God. So what is Freedom Through Divorce? Well, Freedom Through Divorce is actually an online school full of personal development courses for women of God who have been through divorce or who are considering divorce. Anyone who has had to deal with divorce understands that it is extremely difficult. There are so many balls that you have to juggle. Will the children be okay? Is this something that God is going to be okay with? How does it affect my relationship with God? How am I going to learn how to be independent as a new single person or a new single mom? And there's so many things you have to consider. And as a Christian, there are just so few resources out there to help you understand how to navigate those things. So this is a school that really goes from considering divorce and understanding God's views on divorce, when it's acceptable, when it's not acceptable, and understanding that there are so many more cases where God sees divorce as acceptable than what is normally taught out there. And it does it in a way that is not condescending, that's not judgmental, that is just giving you the information from God's heart. And most importantly, is from someone that's been through what you're going through. It's not just theology. It's not just, I read this or I heard this, but it's someone that's actually walked through it. So the personal development courses are meant to help you move and experience freedom through divorce, because there's so many people who they get a divorce, but they don't thrive afterwards. They stay stuck. They stay bitter. They stay telling anyone that'll listen how terrible their ex is. And that's not God's plan for you. God wants you to be able to move towards the purpose and plan that he has for your life and to thrive so that the chapter of your life post-divorce is better. That's what the word says. It says your latter days shall be greater than the former days. So that's what freedom through divorce is all about. It's personal development courses that you can take the information from a biblical perspective and experiencing God's freedom, his prosperity, his love, his joy, his peace, all of the fruits of the Spirit and the blessings that he sent his son to die for you to be able to have. Just because you've had to go through a divorce does not mean that you are negated from the promises that God has for you. So that's what freedom through divorce is. If you're interested in learning more, visit our school today.